Data modernization is no longer just about where data lives. It is about making data accessible, protected, governed, and ready for the next wave of innovation, especially as organizations look to bring AI from experimentation into production. This week, Ahmed Al-Nabhani joins us to talk about AI, data modernization, and how NetApp helps solve some of your toughest data challenges.
Welcome to the Tech ONTAP Podcast.
I love NetApp.
Oh, yeah.
I love NetApp because it's so fun.
I'm here in the basement of my house, and I have Ahmed Al-Nabhani with me. We're here to talk about AI stuff, like AI data pipelines, AI modernization, and how it really integrates in with the NetApp story. So, Ahmed, what do you do here at NetApp, and how do we reach you?
Thank you so much, Justin, for having me on this great podcast. So I got ordered to talk more about data modernization and data pipeline. I'm working as a senior solutions engineer. I'm handling the UAE enterprise sector, and you can reach me out on LinkedIn or through you. I'm very glad to be in such a great team, GCC, and supporting in UAE. As a technology advisor for our customers, we are a specialist when it comes into data platform and pipeline, and how we are mapping directly to NetApp.
All right, excellent. We'll include some of those links in the blog post and the posts that go along with this. But let's just kind of kick things off by talking about data modernization. This term gets thrown around a lot. So when you talk about data modernization, what do you mean by it?
Yeah, actually, today's conversation is all about data modernization. It's not just refreshing the storage. It's about modernization, how data is being discovered and governed, moved and shipped from way to another, and have been consumed by the enterprise. And especially when we are talking about enterprise, especially nowadays, we are talking about hybrid environments, so AI can actually scale. Most of AI programs and initiatives we are seeing that stall because of data access, governance, cleaning of the data, lineage, and operational complexity. It becomes a bottleneck, not only the GPUs. When we are talking more about data modernization, we are talking about how we can upgrade data systems, how we can integrate it with the current infrastructure in a practice, and how data can be accessed everywhere, and how we can use it, how we can secure it and make it more valuable, and we can use it as a product. We can see that in the cloud, we can see it in the hybrid cloud architecture, and with a better governance. It's not just a migration project, it's a new operational model. So every organization needs to start how to integrate with their operation model, how we can change it, and how we can unify multiple break silos into one standardized, governed, automated delivery. So in a transition, we can say that the data modernization nowadays is a data foundation strategy for any organization. The next question we can ask any organization comes into enterprise: how do you feed your analytics data pipeline? How you are living without AI strategy? What is the AI affecting your data management workflow? And how you are keeping your data from multiple silos into one unified data platform. So this is what we are talking about, data modernization and how it is affecting the enterprise.
Yeah, there's a lot to it, right? It's not just taking some data and chewing through it and making something out of it. There's a lot that goes into it. You don't want to grab the wrong data. You don't want to put things into your AI inferencing that maybe doesn't make sense, because you'll start to get hallucinations. And then you have to start worrying about the governance, the regulations. So when it comes to the Middle East, what sort of regulations and compliance issues are you running into when we're talking about data modernization and governance?
Well, we have multiple aspects actually in GCC when it comes into mapping, how we can have applying practical AI data management strategy. We can start with the AI ready or AI first strategy when it comes into an outcome for data pipeline. We can have a trusted data access. We can have a policy. We can have audit when it comes into repeatable data pipeline from dev to production. This is really aligns with the intelligent data infrastructure strategy that currently the enterprises are going. We can talk more about the hybrid by design. We have seen multiple enterprises that are not putting their data in multiple silos or on-prem. They are having multiple infrastructure or data centers, whether it is on-prem or to the cloud in a different GCC or the public hyperscaler regions. We have seen a lot of initiatives when it comes into GCC for AI, commonly need for the hybrid cloud community. We can see data stays for sovereignty inside the country. We can see the compute burst when it comes into services that need to be accessed by external users, not only to the cloud. And we can position that in our reference architecture story, not only to be compromised by others. Governance for GCC is not only a security, it's an add-on for the data sovereignty. We are emphasizing the enterprise in order to have a consistency, governance, and guardrails for these kind of security contexts for data movement. We have the right architecture in order to have these kind of workloads to run on ONTAP, and how we can build our AI pipeline scale and lead into this aggregated story, performance, and capacity, and how we can have our data modernization when it comes into GCC enabling by AI safety, and when it comes into scale, and how we can unify multiple data silos into one data plane, automated and ready for be delivered for customers. We are talking about data modernization, how it is reshaping the GCC region from modernization to architecture, having unstructured pipeline, to AI moves from pilot to production swiftly.
When it comes to the AI projects themselves, there's a lot of interest in AI. A lot of companies want to use it, but they tend to run into problems when implementing it, trying to find the right use cases. So tell me a little bit more about that challenge and why some of those projects might not come to bear.
Yeah, actually, it's all about the data pipeline when it comes into how we can break it into the real world and how we can shape it into the enterprise real needs and the strategy. We can see multiple organizations, they are using the AI pipeline or initiatives just to have it being thrown by AI use cases. Maybe it's being driven by the business or being driven by data. So whenever the strategy had been a drive, we are there in order to support our customer. We have seen AI pipeline being complex and stuck with multiple initiatives because of lack of data, lack of resources, lack of data silos, infrastructure readiness. Where is the analytics layer or the data toolkits that we can support? We are involved as a NetApp team with multiple organizations as an enterprise, have too many complicated and too many toolsets the customer is using already, and how we can shape and unify our data ops toolkits in order to be integrated with the customer real strategy, and how we can stitch together around multiple components. We are talking about 13 plus end-to-end when it comes into data ops pipeline. So data is siloed when it comes into across on-prem to the cloud. We are making discovery. We are providing the access. We are providing them the governance that they need. We are the most secure storage on the planet. We are providing the customer the real AI and transformation that comes into a data flow. So we are focusing our teams in order to export, copy, and merging multiple replica across the regions. Modernization is not just a fix for a current strategy or just a KPI in order to be taken for a customer. We are consolidating data services for multiple organizations, and we are supporting AI organizations in order to have their platform consistent. So we are providing them the security, the protection, and the performance, plus the automation with the open AI platform. The transition line here is that we are seeing data modernization in order to be solved or to be faster for the organization to achieve their AI strategy or initiative, to have an intelligent data platform that compels and collapse complexity while staying hybrid.
So you mentioned intelligent data platform, and we've talked some about data silos and unstructured data. NetApp has solutions for those, but they're very different buckets, right? You start with your infrastructure, and then you start talking about the data management piece of that. So let's start with the infrastructure. What sort of things do we have at NetApp that help address some of those data challenges, like the data silos and the performance and the scale?
We have a lot of solutions, the AFX that we recently announced. We have reference architecture when it comes into NVIDIA. We have flexible AI. We have multiple storage reference architecture that intended to be NVIDIA certified rather than it is baseboard or superboard. We can provide the reading reference architecture when it comes into inferencing, machine learning, and AI workloads. This is from unifying the data platform in any infrastructure where it comes into data management platform. When we are talking about the toolkits itself, we have our software layer when it comes into NetApp Data Ops tool. We are making the data set really ops self-service for engineers, and specifically we are talking about data scientists and data engineers. These guys, they don't understand infrastructure requirements. They just need resources in order to run their workloads and in order to have their AI or machine learning or deep learning workload to be run in a smooth way. We have our data ops toolkit. We have Python codes can integrate with Jupyter notebooks in order to help the data scientists or engineers to do storage aware tasks without becoming a storage expert, by the way. We announced recently, by the way, our MCP, which is multi-context protocol. So we can talk now to our storage as a ChatGPT or as an LLM. We have our MCP ONTAP or we have Harvest. So we can have our metrics that can be correlated and integrated with our storage, and we can just talk to our storage and fixing things on the fly. And by the way, the ONTAP MCP have 60 plus workflow that can be integrated with your LLM rather than it is Cloud, OpenAI, etc., in order to do your tasks. So when we are talking about how we are fixing and supporting customers, we are not talking to C-levels or business level initiatives. We are talking to data engineers and we are talking to data scientists that we are solving real complex scenarios. We are talking about solving from a workflow example. Once we started to initiate the AFX, the workflow had been decreased for multiple customers from weeks to hours in order to unifying their data management pipeline, having unstructured data in a safe, hardened, and specifically you are talking about ONTAP and how we can solve this, but their problem. So the AFX story solves also multiple problems when it comes into how we can disaggregate architecture. I heard that it's really magic when it comes into high throughput of two extremes. We can having a preparation or training and we have high capacity and they are not corresponding to each other. So you can now leverage your data as a product. You can spin up the clean copies and you can have a real experiment, keep data lineage via snapshots. And it can be secured, by the way, and you can apply anti-ransomware for protection or even more security. You can reduce the wasted time that you can have to solve current tickets and queues. So we have the power in order to move on with the data management platform. If the customer or the enterprise would like to have an AI operation tie in, there is a momentum, by the way, for us as an ONTAP in order to have an MCP type for operational models where observability becomes conversational and action is to be executed in a safe, validated, and API tool.
Earlier, you talked about how data scientists don't understand the infrastructure. And I would argue it's less that and it's more they just don't care. All they care about is how do I get my data? How do I protect my data? How do I secure my data? How do I create data guardrails? How do I make sure I'm not asking the wrong questions of the data? So that's where all these NetApp utilities and software pieces come into play because it can help them translate those storage operations into data operations. And that's the purpose of the data ops toolkit is data operations. And that's why it's named as such. So this chatbot you talked about, the MCP server and the integration with Harvest, give me some examples of where that would come into play, where it would be useful for one of your data scientists or your data engineers.
For example, you are providing a safe share for a specific ML or deep learning workloads, and you are providing this kind of service to external users in order to have a session for it and to do some kind of a training before it being propagated to production. Let us say, for example, these external users are facing some kind of a latency and they having a degradation when it comes into the performance of their platform or the AI toolkit that they are using. And they have started to complain and they reverted back to the data engineer and he don't know about infrastructure. So what we can do is log into the MCP ONTAP. He can start chatting with the storage like he is chatting with ChatGPT or a copilot, leveraging the issue that, for example, NFS share 1 is facing a degradation. What the MCP do is to have an API by Harvest in order to collect the metrics of the ONTAP, and it will revert back with an answer. So, for example, that this NFS share 1 is having a quota limit of 200 IOPS, and it's facing a degradation and the latency 5 point something millisecond. So he can start ask also chat with the storage itself in order to tell him, okay, thank you so much for the information, Mr. Harvest, but can you fix the issue? And what the harvest can do is just enable the quota for that specific nefas share in order to increase the limit of the IOPS. And after a period of time, the limit had been increased of that specific share. And he can monitor that on the fly and can be applied to these kind of shares that external users are using, and problem can be solved. And I have seen it multiple times in our labs.
Yeah, tracking down a performance issue, and I've been at NetApp for almost 20 years now. It takes some time. It takes some effort. If you can quickly identify the problem and quickly identify a solution, that saves you time, that saves you headache, that saves you frustration. It saves you from calling NetApp and having to work through the case and that sort of thing. So it really helps everyone involved, I think, where if you can really just nail it down quickly, you save money based on what the cost is involved with how the performance is impacting your business. So a lot of good comes out of that. I would say working with AI enough, you probably don't want to tell it to just fix it. You probably want to ask it what it's going to do first. Hey, how would I fix this? Oh, yeah, okay, you could do that. Because you don't want it to be like, oh, we could fix this by deleting your volume. I'm not saying it's going to do that, but
you can spell chat with your storage. That's it.
Yeah, just start of the chat. Just ask it questions. Don't tell it to change things blindly. But ultimately, this is all great. We have the infrastructure with AFX that allows you to disaggregate the storage, right? And really what that means is if I need to scale my performance, my throughput specifically, I can scale the compute, right? I can just scale the nodes. I don't have to add additional capacity that I may or may not use. And I don't want to have to pay that extra money for things that are just going to sit there and not be leveraged, right? And then you have all the ONTAP features, the data protection, the security, the scaling, the different performance features like flex groups. So that's the infrastructure part. And then you mentioned the external stuff, the data management pieces, the data ops toolkit, Grafana and Harvest. What other things are you seeing leveraged in the NetApp portfolio besides those two very important things to help data scientists deal with their data? I know I've started talking about the AI data engine as an aspect here. Can you expand upon some of that?
Yeah. AIDE, when it started, by the way, it was based on hardware. Now we are seeking towards a software-defined storage version of that, which is version 2. This will be a keystone for our position when it comes into ONTAP with the AFX story. So when we are talking about how you are unifying your data management strategy and how you are unifying your data pipeline from context, from guardrails, from security, from propagating, from curation towards the production, this is massive. So we are talking about multiple differentiation we can see. We can see enterprise grade reliability. We can talk about security and governance when it comes to the business aggregated scale from storage and compute. And imagine how it can be governed by the AIDE when it comes into your data lineage and data cleaning. So we are talking about also how we can run it over the cloud. We want to create these machine learning or deep learning workflows. So cloud connected by design strategy for these customers is a build for how they can deploy AI on-prem, how we can touch base the public cloud, let us say, the services and eligibility, and while keeping the consistency of our data service, especially when you are using AIDE on-prem. We are talking about a unified data platform, just a narrative for the AFX, but we can talk about scale. So imagine when AIDE started to be software defined, it's going to help a lot of customers to find, secure, transform, and even deliver their AI story to their customers and their applications. And they start using AI as a product or the data as a product, actually, to be so. So the transition here is that an architecture is a one half. The other half is the data operation that comes into execution. How data can stream actually, it comes into provisioning, how you can clone it. You touch base on the snapshot before. We talk about the flex clone, how you can write it on the edge, how you can have multiple versioning when it comes into data sets. And we have our platform that's supporting S3, and how we can integrate the cloud volumes on tap when it comes into cloud or hybrid cloud committed. That where is the data or the data ops toolkits lands when it comes into reshaping the whole story from the initiative or from the business strategy towards an IT solution for a customer who is looking for a management data modernization strategy.
You've mentioned this cloud and on-prem approach to dealing with this data, and that obviously is going to involve some sort of data movement. So tell me a little bit about how we can address that challenge here at NetApp.
We are number one hyperscaler partner for multiple hyperscalers. We are number one with Azure, GCP, and AWS. We have natively ONTAP running on Cloud Volumes ONTAP because we are running infrastructure as a service at the end. So when the customer is looking for a mobility, which other vendors, they are struggling, we have a unified seamless integration between the data movement. So we can have intelligent tiering, we can have snapshotting, we can have multiple versioning or control for these assembly buckets. So we can talk log, we can talk file, we can talk object rather than it is on-prem to the cloud. So imagine nowadays customers that they are having AI-ready data strategy, for example, and they are looking for an outcome, not just a platform. So they can have their trusted data access. They can have the seamless policy when it comes into tiering and movement of the data, it comes into application shipping. And imagine the integration with Kubernetes that we are having on-prem, gested in line with Trident, and how it can seamlessly integrate with the multiple hyperscalers without having an external Kubernetes management platform. So we can having a repeatable pipeline from production to test and dev, from pre-prod to production. And these enterprises, they are looking heavily for this kind of platform. I know multiple organizations, they are running the SIT, the test and dev, or even the pre-prod on cloud, and they are running their production on-prem. This saving them money, and they are using Cloud Volumes ONTAP. It's aligned with their data sovereignty and the intelligent data infrastructure, compliant with the GCC regulation. It is secured by design. We can apply security on-prem, data at rest, and anti-ransomware, threat detection, etc. And we can leverage these customers in order to manage their data anywhere, secured and protected by our intelligent data platform. So the hybrid by design, when it comes into cloud infrastructure, especially when we are talking about our GCC AI first strategy, the initiatives came commonly in order to have a hybrid cloud committee. We have multiple stories we need to tell when it comes into data, being data locality, how to be secured locally. And the data sovereignty ensures and emphasizes that data can need to be stayed on-prem inside the country, while the compute bursts or the services can be run on the cloud. This kind of positioning of the hybrid cloud community is not just a feature, it's on top delivering multiple hyperscalers in order to leverage our platform. So the right architecture for these kind of workloads is just to have a massive unstructured data to unify your AI or data pipeline, which lead these organizations in order to have disaggregated story rather than it's on-prem or to the cloud, or even having the both or unifying these kind of platform. The customer will gain the performance, the capacity that he needs, and the scalability that he is looking for rather than it is on-prem or to the cloud. We are providing a solution for the customer. Whatever the customer needs, whatever the customer is looking for from the AI initiative. We have video surveillance running on-prem, but the analysis had been run on the cloud. We have fraud detection running on the cloud when it comes into data processing and tasks that are running there. But the actual data, when it comes into data personalization for any financial institutions, for example, it's running on-prem. So this kind of mix and match, slice and dice of these architecture or strategies is just to have the agility and the elasticity that the customer is looking. Whatever the customer is looking in order to achieve from data pipeline, on-prem or to the cloud, we can have the data velocity and the data elasticity, whatever the strategy is looking for. The most important is how we can integrate and align the customer business initiatives and how to map it into an IT solution that the customer needs.
Another part of the data migration, when we talk about going from ONTAP to the cloud, and you touched on some of that, but really one of the key drivers of that is that SnapMirror technology. And when you're dealing with these large data sets in thousands or hundreds of thousands or millions of files, if you have to copy all that with a NAS protocol or something, you're looking at every single file. It's an operation every time. You're like, what's the metadata? What's the metadata? What's the metadata? With a SnapMirror, it's basically like taking that giant briefcase of data and just saying, here, just take this data, right? It's the entire thing encapsulated. We don't care about the metadata because we're bringing it all with us. Everything's coming with you. So there's a lot of efficiency there, saves a lot of time and money because you're not having to increase your operations. You're not having to go chew through all that data. But once it gets to the destination site in the cloud, that's when you can start to do your analysis. And then now that it's local to those GPUs aren't waiting for the data, they're not waiting for operations. They're all able to just use it in real time without having to take a trip across the LAN or the WAN. So that's really, I think, the key differentiator with NetApp is that we have that integration within the cloud. So whether it's Cloud Volumes ONTAP, Amazon FSxN, Azure NetApp Files, Google Cloud NetApp Volumes, it all fits together. Everything can touch one another and bring that data over in a holistic approach rather than having to deal with it at a very granular, fine level that you see with those unstructured data sets.
Perfect. Totally agree. At the end, Justin, I would like just to add data modernization or how to map it into NetApp. We can divide it into 3 layers. We are talking about our unified data platform. Layer 2, we can talk about the control plane and the open API ecosystem that we are having and integrating with. Layer 3, we can have the data services from discovery, classification, governance, and the transformation. If we need to start with the first layer, which is the unified data management, we have a single data plane across the whole file lock object, from problem solving into security protection, into performance, into the experience that he is feeling itself, plus the automation to become consistent. If we need to jump into the next layer, which is the control plane and the open API ecosystem, we are talking about the modern operation that we are already ingested and we are already upgrading our ONTAP software. We are exposing these commands via REST API, plus the client libraries that he can choose and use in order to have the automation framework. So modernization becomes a workflow driven, not just an admin driven or infrastructure driven. When we go up and we started to talk about data services, here we are talking about the data modernization and where we can get our hands dirty. So data modernization need to be discovered, need to be classified, need to be governed, need to be transformed from one shape to another, structure to unstructured. So here where we can move our data to be AI ready and we can have it accurate, we can have it context, we can have it searched across the estates of multiple organizations. The bottom line is that we are not talking about architecture shift. We are talking about a direct alignment with our modernization pipeline, rather than it is disaggregated architecture or a unified. So you touch really a good base when it comes into our ONTAP and how AFX complete that story, how AIDE unifying your data management layer, how you can design your AI unstructured data to have an intensive workload and GPU-rich environment without over-provisioning storage. This is a very key element when it comes into any AI or data initiatives for the AI pipeline. We have seen multiple customers. I need AI, for example, to do 1, 2, 3. When it comes into my organization, when it comes into specific verticals, we are here to support our customers in order to drive them into the right roadmap. We are talking about our GCC regions to give them the right architecture for their workload. We are providing them the governance. It's not an add-on anymore. It's a security first. We are talking about a data modernization, scalability when it comes into AI safety, how you can unify their data management pipeline and how you can automate your workload. So what is the best way to mean for modernization success for any customers in the upcoming 90 days? This is the real facts, how they can start to embed their API workflows, how they can start to touch their baseline comes into governance and guardrailing their Gen AI or RAG AI story, which comes into internal or customized LLM or a machine learning or deep learning for their data. So we need to touch base on multiple scenarios when it comes into customer story and how to position ONTAP cleverly and smartly for these kind of customers. We supported customers in multiple occasions, and now we are starting to see a lot of initiatives. We won a lot of deals when it comes into our region, specifically when we are talking about data modernization, AI specific workloads, and how we can integrate with such a platforms, orchestrator, and in order to have their infrastructure ready for customers in order to achieve their AI story. It's not just an infrastructure requirement. It's now become a strategy, and it now become layers that the customer need to think about when it comes to his data modernization and how we can map it into our NetApp data platform store.
Yeah, and really what it comes down to is when you're dealing with these projects, when you're dealing with these architectures, you start with the data. Like what's the data going to do?
Yeah.
And then we can work backwards from there. Now, what do I need? What do I need to put into my storage? What sort of tools do I need for that toolkit? And then having it all encapsulated into a single solution really just simplifies the entire process. And that's where NetApp really fits in.
Yes, totally. Now, when we modernize the data infrastructure or the data foundation for any customer, the next question comes into our mind that how we can feed these data, how we can make it AI ready for saving copies of everything. We have seen multiple platforms. They burden the customer with their requirements, how we can simplify things with NetApp, and how we can make the life of our customers easy. Today's conversation is about data modernization and AI strategy, not just refreshing the storage and modernizing it and how the data has been discovered, governed, and where to plug it, hybrid or on-prem, and how the AI landscape or the AI data pipeline is being redefined. This is actually matters for any scale, for any AI platform that is really needed to be done on a proper way. So we are talking about most of our AI programs that we can have it ready. We can have a data access everywhere. You touch base about the simplicity of how we have data move the data from on-prem to the cloud, or unified data management across multiple storage platforms. How we can make it from operational complexity to become very easy for these data engineers and data scientists, because at the end, we are easy the language for our customers. Imagine I was in a meeting before 1 week and we were talking about our MCP. The customer got the wow effect, by the way. So he was talking, really, this is very astonishing. I need the ops to run. I needed to start testing it. I need to do my testing on my machine learning. The next phase will integrate with MCP and he will start to ingest it with his customized LLM. Not only with OpenAI, he's having a customized LLM he needs to start ingesting with. And all of that can be done with our data ops toolkits and our open API ecosystem. So now, Justin, the conversation is not just about AI requirements when it comes into storage or hardware. We are talking about business, understanding the customer needs. We came before 1 week, have a meeting with the customer. And really, it turned out from a simple use case into a large scale opportunity. Our integration when it comes into AI, how we can leverage our data toolkits, how we can make the life of our data engineer easy, and we reduce the workflow from months to weeks for this kind of customer. And we started to talk about phases of projects. We started to talk about a power move for the customer from traditional AI workload into MCP and agents. So imagine the talk how we shift by using our ONTAP structure.
Yeah, and these are all topics and conversations that really resonate with these companies because that's top of mind for them these days. How do I consume this data? How do I protect this data? How do I secure this data? And that's really the bottom line for all of that.
We consider ourselves as a technology advisor for the customer. So we started the conversation with a business level. We go down deep to get our hand into our data engineers and data scientists lab. I need to start my modernization of data. This is one thing the customer need to look at. I need to have multiple copies. I need to do governance and operation. I need to start using my AI pipeline in order to scale performance later on versus capacity. I have specific tool sets and I have already a data management strategy and tool sets I'm using. How can I rely that or integrate with the ONTAP story? I need to secure or override my government and my compliance in order to be ransomware to protect it, specifically in our region. How I can have my Gen AI or RAG goes live in a very easy way. A lot of questions needed to be asked to the customer from business and technical perspective in order to map this into our ONTAP solution. We have a breadth of complete story. We have reference architecture everywhere. We are integrated with multiple enterprise data toolkits, AI reference architecture, specifically NVIDIA, Intel, and AMD. We are talking about this class for how to measure data modernization and to be successful for the customer within a minimum period of time. So things in our GCC is a specific constraint when it comes into shape this kind of architecture and how we are designing this around and how we can localize the data and apply our data server.
How does that get started with you or somebody at NetApp?
You can reach me out on LinkedIn anytime. I'm always supporting our customers when it comes to AI strategy and how to reshape and modernize their AI story.
All right, Ahmed, thank you so much for joining us today and talking to us all about AI and data modernization, specifically with regards to NetApp and all of our solutions that we offer.
Thank you so much, Justin, for having me with you on this podcast. And thank you so much for the time.
Yep, no problem. Thank you.
All right, that music tells me it's time to go. If you'd like to get in touch with us, send us an email to podcast@netapp.com or send us a tweet @NetApp. As always, if you'd like to subscribe, find us on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, Stitcher, or via TechONTAPPodcast.com. If you like the show today, leave us a review. On behalf of the entire Tech ONTAP podcast team, I'd like to thank Ahmed Al-Nabhani for joining us today. As always, thanks for listening. Oh, yeah.